Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Record Breakers, a podcast in which four dudes share music with each other and share their thoughts and feelings. I'm Petey Rave, your man with no plan. Here with me to share our feelings together in this circle, we've got Brett.
Hot dunk.
We've got Patrick.
Hi.
And we've got Drew.
Hey.
Yeah. Hey. We're here to talk about music and discuss and things like that. The provider of the music, provider of the album this week is me. I'm providing an album for us this week. It's kind of like I'm giving you I'm letting you you know how you choose your adventure books, you kind of like make a choice and then you kind of hold your finger in the book so you can go back in case things went wrong. Things went fine when we did our adventure, but this goes back to when I asked you guys to choose between Danny Tamborelli and Adam Brody, unless I'm completely mistaken. Of course, Danny Tamborelli got us Polaris's Adventures of Pete and Pete soundtrack. Adam Brody gets us this. This is Phantom Planet, The Guest. And there would be a particular track that would connect the two for very obvious reasons, which we'll get to in a couple blocks from now. Yeah.
Here we come.
Driving down the 101. We're driving down the US one. It'll be down here in South Florida. I want to make a Florida version. Florida!
Right, there'd be a lot more cocaine in your version, but all right.
I don't know.
More wired up. It'll be more
you been
up-tempo.
to California?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Point taken.
It's on a coast, and it's next to Mexico, so yeah. But yeah.
Not saying those two things are conducive to coke, but
it doesn't hurt.
Hey, having ports of entry.
Yes.
And land, a combination of ports of entry and land access. All right. But yeah, let's talk about this album. It is a very interesting album. Let's talk about expectations. I'll go with Brett. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
If you were to ask me, name the genre that Phantom Planet would be in, I don't know that I could. I did not attach a name to the band that made the song for that show that I didn't watch, and I did not know the other things that they did, or that wasn't just that one song that I had heard of theirs was not created in a laboratory. Yes. For television. Like I was unaware that of any parts of this, including happening upon the fact that all things were kept in pace by the deft hands of Jason Schwartzman. But I'd all of this stuff came to me as quite a shock. It was very distressing.
Yes.
Very distressing.
Patrick, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Literally everything Brad said.
Yeah.
I had heard one song on this album, not through watching a show, but just because literally you couldn't escape that song for a minute. But I had no idea who it was by, and I had never heard anything else they'd ever done. So coming in blind here.
Yes. Yeah, Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
My expectations were a little bit more informed than our other two hosts. Here, so for me, I've always been adjacent to this genre, I guess. This sort of power poppy weirdness. If you look at related artists, there are bands there that I frequently listen to. But it's always been that band was I'll get back to that. I know I should listen to them, but I'll get back to it. I knew a couple of tracks, two of them on this album, oddly enough, because they were put everywhere. But besides that, it was something that I always meant to get back to because everything of theirs that I heard was kind of cool, and I wanted to dive in. So this was a good excuse for me, at least.
Yeah. This album is cool. It's very much like I said, it's early 2000s power pop. It kind of falls into a very that genre and connects it very well. This album, I think for me, the main thing I picked it was because it's one of those that I can indulge myself into because and we all indulge ourselves into some more than others on the show of like just the nostalgia trip. Which is this album was an album I had on CD and was one of the CDs that I would take with me to listen to while I was going to college. I was going to school, and I would take the train and I would listen to this album because it was only one of the couple of CDs that I would carry around. And this is a cool album. It's a fun album. There's a lot of catchiness going on. There's a lot of centered around kind of very power pop catchiness, pop tune style. They're centered around Alex Greenwald's kind of vocals and his a lot of keyboard present, like piano stuff and things like that. There's a lot of like strummy guitars, a lot of strumminess. But overall, it's a fun record that's pretty catchy, pretty cool songs, fun lyrics. There's fun songs to sing along to. I'll let you guys describe it a little bit better. I've never been the one to describe albums really well. Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
Musically, well, this is a pretty well produced album. It's in 2002. In the era of this album, the recording style du jour was recording all forms of alt rock as lo-fi as possible with as few things going on. Very simple, not a lot of layering of stuff. This album does a little bit of that, but like the tracks are laid out, the layers, the voicing, everything is put together with care, and it kind of shows in a way that like there's no rough edges, there's no like slightly underbent strings, there's no like dropped vocal notes, there's no like you can't tell like this is almost music that was created in a laboratory quality. Like they did not have a bad take that they left in any of the many different instruments that they use in all songs. Like every song I was listening for, like, well, there's like an electric piano in there somewhere that somebody's just pounding on for like only 2 or 3 beats, and like just it's not there the whole song. It's just somebody's like at this point needs something to fatten it up or to add weight to it or add some emotion. It was really put together in a way that was not amateur. This was definitely put together by someone who knew, who had the funds and the time to do it correctly. And the fact that there were no really dropped vocal issues with as much harmonizing is not trivial, especially with the vocal style, which does not lead itself to being the easiest thing to hit every note when you're singing a lot of notes while holding. Yeah, it's not the easiest of singing styles to hit. The instrumentation won't melt your face off, but it's not that kind of album. This is pretty Wonder Bread vanilla white people rock. I mean, it's lyrically, you're not going to read the lyrics in a poetry book, but this is very safe, inoffensive, adult rock radio approved sounds that it doesn't have really high points, but it also doesn't have low points at all. It sort of just is. It is inoffensive, and it does what's advertised. And of like its contemporaries expect piano strings and other tricks to add weight and emotion to the slow jams, but it really ticks off a lot of the boxes for a turn of the millennium. Not quite left the 90s sound, but have the feel of a turn of the millennium sort of album.
Yeah. Patrick, what would be the themes elements that caught your attention?
Power pop is one of those genres that has changed a ton in terms of what gets thrown under it, depending on what decade it is and what part of the world you're from. So like lumping this very much fits into late 90s, early 2000s American power pop, the All American Rejects of the world, and 40 other bands. But it's poppy rock music. It's very polished. It's not like Brett said. It's not trying to do like the lo-fi thing that was going on at the same time like White Stripes or the Strokes were doing. This is very, very cleanly recorded. It isn't. I wouldn't call it adventurous music. It doesn't do anything crazy or wild. It's well put together and like well played. But I feel like, and Petey sort of alluded to this, for him, this is nostalgia. This is just something that like takes him back to a time and place. And I feel like if this was a thing that you listened to at this time, you probably enjoyed the hell out of it. But, here 15 years later, there's other music from this era I enjoyed more. But I can see like it's one of those where like you respect it for what it is and for the quality that the quality of the musicianship, which is good. I mean, nothing's bad about this record, but like it didn't move me emotionally, which is something I often want music to do. It's either got to move me from a technical perspective, like progressive rock might, or from an emotional perspective, like all the dumb emo shit I listen to, and this didn't do that. But also like, hey, Jason Schwartzman's a totally competent drummer. I did not know that until today. Not just star of random Wes Anderson films.
Yeah.
He's also good in them, to be fair.
Yeah.
Movie.
Yeah.
He was good at drumming, which
but also like totally competent drummer in like a reasonably successful band.
Yeah, whoever's putting this album together would not have put up with him. Not like they got everything they needed out of him, which is impressive.
And at this point, like he wasn't anything but the kid from Rushmore, basically.
Yeah.
Which was, not the most successful of Wes Anderson's films, and like many of them appreciated more now than they were when they were new.
I was going to say, but it was good though.
It was good. I'm not saying, but I'm saying it's more appreciated now that everyone loves Wes Anderson than.
Wait a minute. What he was in? Slackers came out in 2002, so he was not yet the guy from Slackers that had a doll made out of hair. So okay.
Oh, this was before, just slightly before Slackers.
Yes.
Before him and Devon Sawa, another great actor of the era, teamed up together.
Oh my God, Devon
for a great
Sawa.
cinematic experience.
Holy cow!
Wow. I'm done googling stuff.
Okay.
Wait, I forgot Jason Segel. Oh my man.
Yeah,
Slackers.
I saw pictures.
That's a weird movie.
Yes. Yeah. Before we get into that tangent,
Next week on Slacker Breakers.
Slacker Breakers. No, we'll leave
could
that for...
then we could be confused with the Richard Linklater Slacker film with no S, which is about how Austin was cooler 20 years ago.
Yes. No.
Right.
30 years ago. God damn.
Patrick, you don't get to be Austin hipster. You just moved there.
I know. I was.
You're
Jeff
part of
Ramsey.
the problem, man.
A guy like Jeff Ramsey, he could be Austin.
Hipster. I'm referring to the movie Slacker because it is the definitive Austin was cooler X years ago film.
Yeah. All right. But moving on. Drew, what would be the themes elements that caught your attention on this album?
Well, I guess I'm gonna like this a bit more than the other two folks. No, the album, like Brett said, was really well put together. Whenever, for some reason, the like sort of indie power pop thing, like that alt rock scene, got really mired in that, like, we're gonna put lo-fi on it because that will make us sound like we're raw and we're doing it independent and we're punk rock or whatever. And it's like that never did anything for me. I think it's lame. And this
it costs less. It costs less to do that too. And the record industry was not doing so hot in the early 2000s.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But it was like a cheap maneuver, right? It was an easy, cheap maneuver. And to strum at that idea, whereas like these guys went for it. They were like, all right, we're gonna sit in the studio. We're going to make something that sounds good. We're gonna make something we're proud of, and I can respect that, knowing how hard that is. The weird thing about that and about this and about like this sort of era of alternative rock is that like you get those things that you know because they were like the theme song from the OC is on an alternative rock record. Like that's weird, right? Like that doesn't compute, but like all of it sounds very pretty. There are like pieces of this compositionally that like it gave me sort of that weird like almost bluesy vibe to it in spots, and that was weird. Like it was something like these things were not things I was expecting on this record at any given point. And it was a fun record from that standpoint. It's something that I'm going to be happy to put in my rotation. I'm the guy still listening to the format and something corporate though, so don't take my word for it on all of those type of things. Like I listen to like music that's probably like way past its prime, but like I don't know. There's something cool about this record and about the band that I'm gonna keep diving into.
Yeah, there's so much to like about this this album and its style. And yeah, when we get into songs, there's the obvious song to pick. There's we'll do the Record Breakers thing, and the theme songs to the OC, being California. Song about California. I mean, it's very well known, very prominent. It has that piano playing. It has that very very memorable piano part right at the beginning, and the refrain and whatnot. But it's still a really cool, fun song to sing along to, and it makes a fantastic opening theme song to a TV show. A TV show that I thoroughly enjoyed.
Shock. I think you had a lot of stock in what UPN, the CW, all of the Warner Brothers network, between Gilmore
Girls and the OC.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yes.
Yeah. Fucking Adam Brody moving. When Adam Brody left the Gilmore Girls. When Dave Rogalski went to college in California, because Adam Brody got cast in the OC. I was a little bothered, but then I watched the OC and I enjoyed it.
Were you also into like the reality shows that they tried to make that were like that? Like they tried to shoot it like the OC? Okay. I was gonna say.
I was like,
you were also a Laguna Beach fan. I was going to leave.
No. I liked clever writing and fun characters, and that's why I liked the OC.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Fun. It was like I also like the OC. I liked the first season of the OC and the last season of the OC. That middle part where it got really soapy, especially the third season was terrible. I celebrated Marissa dying. I was like,
we can't
Marissa
talk
Cooper.
about slackers. You can't talk about TV shows.
We
That's
talked
not how
Marissa
the
Cooper turned over in that car and she was dead. And then they played Hallelujah. I'm like, yes, Hallelujah. All about Taylor Johnson. But yeah, talking about some songs. And then it transitions over to an even more fun, peppy song, like Always on My Mind. And it's like, it's one of those songs that is perfect for like me in the early 2000s, me being like an 18, 19-year-old kid with wild crushes, left and right. And it spoke to me in so many ways. And it's just a fun, catchy song. It is pretty straightforward. Lyrically, it's pretty straightforward as far as it is musically, but it's still well made and fun. And then like there's shifts in mood with like even kind of more songs like Turn, Smile, Shift, Repeat for something interesting. Especially it starts out very kind of like in a different mood setting, and then kind of crescendos up later in the song. It works really well. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, I have to say, this album starts off very strong with things that are memorable. That like I made the hey I called my wife over and I was like, I'm gonna play you a song and I'm gonna let you guess which person brought this to the table. And California is a song that is quite certainly a vanilla ass alternative strum rock song, but it's a very, very well put together one of those. There's a reason why that is leaps and bounds better than anything I will ever create musically, and enjoyed by way more people. I did find that the song "Always on My Mind" did some things that really shocked me. Like, you know, at some points it does sort of have a little bit of lo-fi sound, just like they had a very compressed and overdriven guitar and electric piano that was a little bit on that sounded contemporary to what else was going on at the time, not completely like feedbacking or recorded in like a metal tube. But there are other times that it was so overproduced with so many different layers. It was really great. It was something that you couldn't have just slapped together in a garage studio in 2002. And then a mandolin solo popped in, which, you know, cool. I mean, as a proponent of mandolins everywhere, it was kind of fun to like actually have somebody pull off. It's not melt your face bluegrass, but it fit well and surprisingly fits well with the themes and the sound they were going for. And in our darkest hour, this was where you got the vocalizing of the era. This was the oversung vocals with the overly loud inhales in between words. You might have remembered that from such hits as The Strokes.
I was going to say it was Jordan Pundik syndrome, because Newfound Glory's first like 3 albums had tons of that.
Yeah, and you know, it's a style. I mean, but it's definitely something that it does not stay throughout the whole album. It was for this. It's a way. It's along with putting a cello on a slow song. It adds emotion to it, and it makes it a little bit more than it would be otherwise. The song has a very mid '90s feel, almost like after the death of grunge, when people were still wanting to make music and wear clothes they found at Salvation Army, but they didn't know exactly what to do and they didn't know how to play butt rock yet. That sort of era of strum alt rock, but it very much has the feel of a turning of an era, and I listening to this album as a whole gave me that was a time and a place where people didn't actually know where the music industry was going to go or how making songs was going to sound, because everything the internet had opened up every subgenre to directly target their fans. Having a widely successful, wide reach album like this was one of probably the last era of those big albums that everybody could get at every store and every shopping mall. So it sort of hung with me like that.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Can't not talk about the opening track, California. This is like I think Brett's like, this is a really well put together song of its era. It sounds exactly like the early 2000s, but I don't think it's a bad example. Like, it's, if you're gonna look for what was going on in sort of this power pop late alt rock kind of thing, this is what was going on. It has a really some really nice bass work in it, which I didn't expect, but it was nice to like there was stuff going on that was we're not just playing the root note, and I always appreciate that. But the vocals are a little edge of whiny, but not like my kind of whiny vocals. But it's a song that like you remember. No, this was pretty good. Now that said, by the end of today, I was getting a little sick of it. But that's also because it's the first track. So every time you listen to it, you listen to the album, you pretty much hear it. So it's one of those. Too much of maybe a good thing. Always on My Mind, not the one by Willie Nelson. It's
was
a pretty
Snoop
fun
Dogg
song.
in that one? No, sorry.
Yes. Yes. This is actually a pretty
Hangover.
fun song. I enjoyed it. It's pretty good, and that's I guess the way I would describe it. And then Wishing Well gets really ambitious with orchestral additions to it, like an orchestral accompaniment and like strings and horns and stuff. And it's a little too much, but like I'm kind of okay with it because at least like they went for it. They're like, oh, we're gonna get real, or we're gonna get real extreme here, and we're just gonna add all of the extra instruments, and like it kind of came out okay.
All of them.
Yes, all of them. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, I think by law we have to go over California. Just because, well, one, it's the first track, so therefore it's the Record Breakers thing. Two, it's the hit song, so like you kind of want to talk about the hit song when you're reviewing an album, right?
And three, it's a heck of a large stage.
Beach
It's hard to
Patrol
avoid.
can't go Hulk rules without talking Beach Patrol.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was one of those songs that was everywhere, like for a hot minute, like, and for good reason. I feel like it was a catchy song. It was a fun song. Yeah, it kind of became like a paint by numbers sort of feel to it. But it was something that like when it came on the radio, like you're like, all right, this is a good song. Until it got like overplayed in that area. I'm looking at the plain white tees for some of that too.
Wow.
Because that definitely happened. Tell me I'm wrong, Brett.
No, I just I haven't heard that name in a long time.
White teachers.
Hey there, Brett. What's it like in Indianapolis? All right.
Yes.
So, our darkest hour. I really like that because like I'm a sucker for playing with a dynamic in a song, and I feel like the contrast between the verse and the chorus in that song was pretty drastic in a pretty cool way, and pretty abrupt. Like usually between a verse and the chorus, there's a little bit of a dip, almost like you were going over a bridge, sort of something to connect the two, right? But there's weird how that works out. It's almost like there's words for that. But this was verse, and then like the chorus was there, and then the verse was back, and it was jarring, but it was really like I dug it. I understand that's probably not for everybody, but like I thought it was kind of cool.
You ain't gotta apologize for nothing to nobody. You want to think this is groovy? It's groovy.
I can sit there and groove on it. And then Something Is Wrong. In the reissues, there are a couple more tracks, but this was the original, like, actual ending. And it's sort of a weird way to end it to me, but in a good way, because it sort of just was this, like, slow, soothing sort of track right at the end, which I think was kind of neat. I think that's a neat way to end a record. There's the argument that I've made before that like leave them wanting more, leave them wanting to hit repeat, but there's also something to say of like, yeah, no, that album was all right, and just leaving it at that.
Yeah. Like a complete album. It was just a complete experience. Like a complete sandwich. It's good bread, all the meat you need, and all the cheeses and all the vegetables, and another piece
Corned
of bread.
beef, rye bread,
I love cheese.
mayonnaise, Swiss cheese,
Oh dear God.
sauerkraut. Yeah.
No, sorry. I just saw local news. I don't want to.
Oh, I thought you were gonna have beef with Reuben sandwiches, and I was gonna you're gonna have to throw down.
Nope,
I like
just
a
looked over.
Cuban sandwich.
I just looked over, and apparently a bunch of Zippy, the mascot from the University of Akron, apparently a bunch of costumes got stolen.
Oh, at least I have an alibi. I was on the Record Breakers podcast when the news hit. I'm coming for you, Rubber Ducks mascot.
Oh my god.
Hey, they're about to throw the hammer down. Don't mess with them.
That being said, good luck to those people in their zippy costumes. Really? I don't know. It was back to sandwiches or back to music. A midnight sandwich, a medianoche is a good one. With the ham and the turkey and whatnot. But yeah, let's bring it back around the horn and talk about some conclusive thoughts on this album. Brett, what would be your conclusion on this album?
Well, this is a decent album. It's not the deepest album. There's not going to be a 20-minute song about flying into a black hole, but that's not what you come to this album for. If you want straight up, like alt rock, that like genre bending, almost straight pop, almost adult contemporary, this is a place to look. If you're into that, this is another place to look. It's something that flew completely under my radar. I was not really time and place. That wasn't probably where I was going to for music, but it was an okay time to, now going back, looking at this, it sort of puts me in a time and a place. It is not a bad experience. If you enjoy anything like this, maybe head on to your library and check it out in the compact disc section.
Yes.
Multimedia.
Yes. Patrick, what would be your conclusion?
The album is what it is. It's a thing from a time that I didn't connect with. But like it wasn't bad. Like I can't like sit here and say anything all that negative about this album other than my own personal inability to become emotionally invested in it. So go listen to it maybe and see if you enjoy it. And I don't know, maybe watch the OC if you're into that sort of thing. I never have. I don't know if it's good, but people seem to like it for a while.
It's an interesting journey of a show.
It gets the Petey seal of approval, which it means it's got Petey seal of approval.
Yeah.
Take that for what it's worth.
Well, like I'll stand with Petey on Gilmore Girls being a pretty darn good show. I don't know if I'm as high on it as him, but it's pretty entertaining. I don't know about this one.
Yeah. I'm not even going to get started on Gilmore Girls or the reboot.
But this is all right. It's not my thing, but it's an album. Go listen to it. You won't die, I assure you.
Well,
if you die, it won't be because of the album. It will be extenuating circumstances.
Maybe your CD player will like shoot it out way too fast and will like slit your throat.
Like that movie with Dolph Lundgren. I wish I knew the name of it.
Okay. Drew, what would be your conclusion?
Like I sort of gave away in the B block. The B block, I guess, was that I actually really enjoyed the record. It's probably going to be something that I personally am going to go back into. I don't have the, hey, this is a guilty nostalgia trip thing. Again, my guilty nostalgia trips are usually saved for things like the Deftones, I guess. But this is something that I will be able to say, like, hey, like, maybe I should put, like, in my, like, I'm relaxing, trying to get some work done sort of music. Phantom Planet may very quickly find its way into that. I dig it. I think it's very, very catchy. I can see where some will say, like, yeah, you can tell, like, they really focus more on production than a lot, but I dig that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The movie was called I Come in Peace.
I come in peace. Think the weapon's a key? Yes, I do.
It's like turning your radio dial to KILL.
Dolph Lundgren and space aliens with drugs with CDs that kill people. Sorry.
Yes.
Somebody out there really wanted to know what that Dolph Lundgren movie was.
Yeah.
So,
what was it again? It was
I Come in Peace.
I Come in Peace. COME, right?
Yes.
You change that to another spelling, that turns into a totally different sort of movie.
Yes. All right. My conclusion on this record is that if you,
We're all a bunch of idiots.
I just drove that right into the gutter because I
started it by
12 years
asking if
old.
it was spelled COME. I teed it up for you. You're the one who knocked it out of the park.
I straight manned it.
I do what I must because I can.
We do what we must because we can. For all the people that are still alive. Yeah, my conclusion is that if 8 years have passed, you should acknowledge that in your writing. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I said I wasn't going to get into the Gilmore Girls reboot. My conclusion on this album. Don't just grab the script you had lying around and just put it in front of somebody's place.
Next
My
week on
conclusion-
Gilmore Breakers.
Yep.
My conclusion is that this is not a world breaking all time great, but it is a fun record from a particular time and place. Well done, well made, and super fun and catchy. It is not a bad time to spend 42 minutes of your day, chilling out, listening to some music of a certain era. There's a lot to like about the musicianship and about the catchiness and about the poppiness of it all. And if you like the OC, you'll get to listen to the theme song again, but the whole thing, not just like the part that gets enough time to show who's on the show, but the whole thing, both verses and the choruses. But yeah, I think overall you should check it out, especially if you dug early 2000s power pop, late 90s, early 2000s power pop songs and styles and music. Sounds and yeah, that's our conclusion on this album. Now we get to the main event of the evening. You get to haiku reviews. We get to our haiku reviews. We sum it all up in poetic form. Let's start with Brett. Brett, what is your haiku?
Schwartzman's got the beat that make the booty go clap. Super Nintendo.
Yes. Patrick, what is your haiku?
That song from that show, wholly unremarkable, and Jason Schwartzman.
Drew, what is your haiku?
A band I missed. Going back was exciting. California.
Yes. California. Now my haiku. Petey's Nostalgia is a great power pop ride and songs to sing to. Yeah, that pretty much sums it all up. Now now that we've had our haikus, I'll let you know that you can of course find this album on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Play along at home. Follow along. Do your homework. Do the thing. On that Spotify playlist, we know it definitely is there. Is next week's record. Not that we already know what next week's record is. Oh wait, what? Is going to be provided by Patrick. Patrick, what do you got for us next week? I'm curious.
So in the early 2000s, I was listening to something different than Petey. I was listening to a band from Denmark called the Necromantics and their album Dead Girls Don't Cry. Mm-hmm. We getting psychobilly up in here.
Boy, howdy.
Yes. Boy, howdy. Look forward to that next week, but that's next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. Patrick is at the Swagger. Brett is at HIBBARD, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at Exclusive for X, and something really good happened in Cleveland sports just now. I'm Petey Rave.
Go Browns.
I want to win by 60. Sorry.
He gets one championship, and now he's getting greedy.
Yeah, I want another one. You know why? Because I don't want Golden State to win any ever. Ah!
You Petey.
For Record Breakers.
Also, this is the time frame. This is the Boston game. Sorry.
Number 4, Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Record Breakers. Rebellion.net for this and other shows. Rebellion TV on YouTube and a couple other places. Follow along, subscribe, like, share, give us reviews, comment. I'm gonna try to, if you do comment, I'll try to be good about replying to people.
Tell your mom.
Tell your congressman.
That's right.
About Record Breakers. Tell your local.
File with the FCC.
Yes. Tell your local business. I don't know. Tell your Better Business Bureau. Consult with them. I don't know. But yeah, do the things. Until next time. Hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Like, how is she still just back to
Hot dunk.
sleeping with Logan? But she already turned down that ultimatum. Like, it's like, I understand you weren't involved with season 7, but you should at least acknowledge that it happened.